Yes, CAMRYN.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Beautiful day for a neighbor. Won't you be mine? Won't you be mine?
Won't you be my neighbor?
Won't you be my neighbor? Here, neighbor.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Did you make that chicken and pasta stuff yesterday?
Heck yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was good.
From scratch.
From scratch?
No recipe.
Made the pasta on your own too?
Oh, well, no, I mean, I'm not into that. Hang on now. All right.
The monthly webinar.
My camera's not working. I'm gonna figure that out. Let me
When did that finish this? Congratulations. I think I found it.
yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations. Below is the Zoom information.
Yeah, you gotta scroll down the bottom, copy and paste that link into a browser.
Thanks.
No problem.
Like wait till the last second, right?
Oh, we got 10 minutes.
All right.
Kenny, I can see you.
It's weird. It's like I see it up here. I probably need to look at it, so I'm not looking at the camera.
I gotta figure out why my camera's not connecting.
Bacon cheeseburger. Bacon cheeseburger.
Toast. Toast.
Toast. Toast. Toast.
I always test microphones with that because of Mission Impossible. Because you have to test the threshold and the volume level for the room.
Yeah.
Toast. All right. Camera. Why are you not working? Can you see me, Kenny?
Yeah, there's Robert.
Let's see. I don't see what I look like though. It's probably hideous.
Who's sending all the things to Megan?
We're all going to the, or I think we're all going to the show in a little bit. We're going to be
We got
on
training.
this thing
from-
until 3:00, so she probably needs it before because the TV broke too.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's bad.
And go along with.
You gotta have the TV there. You know, I mean, just to
Yeah.
show like the pools, a couple of pool studio images, you know.
Yeah, that may be the best option, just because like Casey's probably already there, right? Or he's going straight there,
Casey was going straight over there.
and then like the three of us and Andy are going to be on that training. So unless Drew's going to go or somebody else,
I think Casey's going. He's gone.
Casey said he was going straight there at 1:12 from whatever appointment he had this morning. So he may be already there.
So we have first Thursday. No.
yeah, today's not the 5th, so
That's that national.
oh, like the monthly, like we did yesterday, yeah. Is our HVAC out? I just saw a text.
Y'all heard Sal Toledo's a 65-70, right? I didn't just make that up.
I heard 65 something, but I don't remember what the last 3 digits were.
Yeah, I heard 65, 75.
I did 65 900 when I told somebody recently, so they give me a couple hundred to discount, I guess.
No, 65 for the short. And there's
Oh,
only
65. Okay,
one. Yeah,
I got you.
there's one of the big ones left. But,
My bad. My bad.
um,
Do we know if they have lead taking sheets?
Oh.
The customer data sheets.
Like for customers to fill out?
Yeah, but I'm taking the new pad, you know, like they kind of do, we can, I think I have it once.
I don't see anyone mentioning it.
Uh,
I don't see anyone mentioning it.
Yeah, we'll get started in just about 2 or 3 minutes here. Make sure that when you guys hop on, I want you to have your cameras on so that we can discuss things face to face. I love seeing your bright, shiny faces as we go forward. The idea behind this is we're all here to learn some things about the pool sales, trading sales in general. So make sure as you guys hop on, unmute yourself. We need focused attention. Again, the best investment that you guys can make is into yourselves as far as learning. Greg and I will share a little bit about our history as we get started, but this is how we're going to do it over the next 3 weeks as far as rehashing. So we will get started in just about 1 minute.
So,
Yeah, can you send me one?
Yeah.
And then Cameron, I'll go ahead and grab the screen. Thank you, thank you. All right, remember as we log on, make sure you enable your camera. I will be asking you guys some questions. In fact, one of the things I'm going to do is assign you guys tasks throughout the week so that we can get some feedback on some of the things that you're doing. Where this really helps and benefits the most, it's quite simple. What are the challenges you are facing in the field? For example, what did you not get that last deal for? What did you get that last deal for? Failures are things we learn from more than we do the successes. You got to find out what the competition is doing, and you have to adapt to the things that they're doing. You have to understand what they're doing within the market and matrix. And that was one of the things that we shared on the webinar yesterday, just about how we've gone too high on our designs. And realistically, you've eliminated kind of that middle bracket, if you will. So let's get into it. Meeting etiquette. Mute your mic when you're not speaking. I do encourage questions. Again, those that ask questions are going to be those that learn. Cameras on, be present, avoid multitasking. The idea is we're here to get to learn. You know, one of the things that always kind of frustrates me a little bit is practicing on your customers. And what do I mean by that? Practicing is on your customers is when you have not invested in yourself, your trade, your learning, and we're going out there, and leads are quite expensive these days. I've got markets right now where a single Google lead is about $800. The idea being is let's make sure that we do the training here and not out there in the field. And then just be respectful of others. Let's make sure that we've got one speaking at a time. So what we're going to do on this in the weekly is you guys have all watched kind of what we call our 101 course. What we're going to watch over the next 3 weeks or so. It's about 30 videos, maybe a few more now that they've added some. It's to give you a good foundation. If you've been here for years, you'll go back and you'll go back to the foundation, and I promise you, you're still going to pick up a couple things as we go forward, but you always have to be brushing up. I've been doing some form of sales now for over 25 years, and sales is something that is truly an art. It's an art of communication with the customer. You see, if the customer knew everything that we knew in our heads, they would clearly choose us. Why? Well, first of all, nobody cares more, right? We're going to give them a better value proposition. Nobody has the buying power that we have. And you take the almost 2,000 people we have in the organization, they do not have as deep a pool of knowledge as we do as an organization. There's a simple reason that right now we're building somewhere around 11.2% of all the pools in the country right now. And we have less than 200 offices, and we're doing 11% of the pools in the country. That's a tribute to how we are doing things, the system and the way that we go about it. You've got to treat the majority of your customers as if they have never gone through the process before. The data we've gotten in the past is pretty straightforward. It's about 8 out of 10 of our customers have never gotten a swimming pool before. And so you have to go in with that assumption that you need to tell the story. You've got to tell the you story every time we go. So things that we'll be covering through prerequisites, things like equipment for sales. We'll cover goal setting, home shows, interior finishes. We'll talk about the salesperson manual, which is something that you come back to. We'll go over the repo, which is now the Tri-Wave. And then ultimately, plumbing and hydraulics and electrical, which Greg will hit some of the things on there. So what I'd like to open up with is, as we get into this, one of the things that is going on now, which is pretty significant, is we've got a large changeover with the Hayward equipment. Now, equipment for the most part is equipment, right? What you guys have got to understand as we've switched from J&E, which you see here, to the new Hayward equipment, is understand the pads. Now, here's one of the very distinctive advantages that we have as we go through this. We understand that as we go out there, there's a whole middle market that is missing. And here's what I mean. In the years of 2001 through about 2006, the industry built about 150 to 170,000 pools. And the average pool back at that point in time was about $38,000 to $40,000. Now, what does that equate to in modern dollars? Well, in modern dollars, that's about call it $65,000, if you will, somewhere within that range. Now, the idea being is, can we build pools like that? In many areas, yeah. And again, it's a national average. You know, there's some areas that are higher. There's some areas that are lower. There's going to be things like that. But pools were a little bit more simple back then. And I stress this in the way of, why did we develop the 3 Hayward pads? For those of you that are not aware, we've got a Hayward pad that's about $1,700. I've got a Hayward pad that's about $2,900. And I've got a Hayward pad that's about $3,900. We did that because it's not the be-all, end-all for every pool out there. We did that to get you guys back into the middle market. The way to go about equipment, the way to go about sales, is to start basic, then work yourselves up. If I was going out to a customer's house, I'd have an A and B design. I'd have, let's say I'm drawing up a 3-bubble pool, which is a free-form pool. I'd have a more basic version of that, and then I'd have a fully decked-out version of that, because that's one of the nice things that you can do in a pool studio. But what you've got to cover is you've got to let the customer upgrade themselves. Let them determine, is the colored light the most important thing? Is the waterfall the most important thing? Is the automation the most important thing, right? That is why you want to start basic and let themselves upgrade them, let them upgrade themselves kind of almost in an a la carte methodology, especially in markets like today's market. This is going to be something that is a more favored item. See, the problem is versus where we were at maybe 3 and 4 years ago, I could just show up, I could throw a Cadillac at them and be like, yeah, this is $110,000. Since I'm the only pool person that showed up, since I'm the only pool person that actually did a design, I guess it's me or it's nothing, right? It's not like that anymore. You got to assume that you're going to go against 5 other competitors within the industry. If you guys are not shopping, then you're doing yourselves a disservice. Is there any questions about the equipment and how we're doing things? Because I think you guys do have to understand that. You know, what does a saltwater generator do? What's the difference between 150, a 325 square foot, and 500 square foot filter? Do you guys know these things? Because if you don't know that, you should. These are going to be questions that your customers ask as you guys are out there in the field. And here's what you should have. You should have quick answers that you can pull out of your pocket. Very simply, what is the difference between a 325 square foot filter and a 500 square foot filter? Square footage, right? Do they clean at any better micron rates? No, it does not. The reason that you would do a 325 or a 500, for example, is I like the old example. It's like a vacuum with a giant bag. It's going to clean the floor, but how much does it hold? And frankly, a 300 is going to take care of most pools out there unless you've got heavy leaf fall, and then you can put, leaf canisters and all that good stuff in there. But understand why you're doing things. Don't just put a 500 square foot filter just because it sounds like it's a big filter. Understand why you would put a saltwater generator on a pool. Why you would put a mineral cartridge on a pool. What level of automation? Because here's where it's going to come on down to. Things like automation, things like upsizing the filter, things like upsizing or downsizing heaters are going to drastically increase or decrease the cost of your equipment pads. Right now, I've got an equipment pad for about $3,000 that I could functionally kind of build the same equipment pad, and it could cost me $10,000. And that's a huge difference, because I promise you, your competition is going to go on out there, and they're probably going to pitch the $3,000 or $5,000 pad. Now, they don't have the advantages of buying power and things like that we do, but start basic and work yourselves up as you go forward. Any questions on equipment before I move forward? Because I'm assuming that everybody knows every single thing about equipment here, and that there's no question conceivably that any of your customers are ever going to ask that you guys don't know about equipment. Right. You guys are going to, right. Guys, let me tell you my history and why we're here. I've been in the business, as you can imagine, most of my life, right? By default, I got into this business. I started selling when I was 24 because we had a policy back then. Actually, you wouldn't be able to sell till you were 25 because you would not understand. You would not be able to take care of your customer. Anyone understand the gravity of the nature? The reason I got leads at 24 is I started passing out my flyers, right? I went out there and I earned that business. And the expectation was extraordinarily high. Now, Sacramento did not have the resources that they have today. We did not have the big and beautiful brochures that you have today. We definitely didn't have the buying power. We did not have the website. Shoot, we didn't hardly have any website back then. If you go back in the Wayback Finder, you're not going to like the website that we have. So you had to earn it on your merits. You had to earn it on sales. You had to earn it on communicating with customers. And here's the deal with Sacramento. If you're selling us any less than about a 20% closing rate, you're probably not going to stick around. We had to perform at 25 and 30% closing rates. I had a career closing rate of about 33%. Didn't matter what type of leads they were. We would go over the permit reports every single week. If we went out on a lead and that customer bought a pool and that pool was not bought from us, we would get grilled as to why was that case? Why did we lose that customer? Where did we fail that customer? Because if you're not doing that, you really should. If a customer's out there buying a pool, we need to understand why they're doing that. It was those failures that taught us how to get better. It was those things, those customers that we lost, calling up Mr. and Mrs. Jones saying, hey, I feel like I let you down. How did I let you down? Why did you go with the other company? If you're not calling, if you're not asking those questions, especially on your failures, you will not improve. You will not become any better. And unless you're closing 100%, which nobody's closing 100%, really nobody will ever close 100%, but unless you're doing that, start practicing on your customers and improve yourself. One more pool right now, with our average pool being about $100,000 right now, that's $5,000 for every extra pool that you get. Put the effort in, guys. The game gets a lot more fun when you get really good at it. I promise you. Let's talk about goal setting. This is impactful. Goals. You should wake up every Monday morning knowing what you're doing for the week. In fact, you should probably know what you're doing next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And here's what I mean by goals. The goals that are not particularly helpful are, let's say one of your goals is, I want to make $100,000, right? Okay, well, that's kind of just a pie in the sky number, but the real question is, well, how do you get there, right? Okay, I want to make $100,000. Well, do you know any of the facts? Do you know any of the things that it is going to take to get there? Let's say, for example, your closing rate is probably not where it should be, and let's say it's at 10%, right? And let's say, again, average pool is about $100,000, going to make about $5,000 for every pool. How many pools does that mean you have to sell? Well, you got to get even deeper than that. Because does every pool that we sell convert to a dig? Nationally, it's somewhere between 75 and 80% that, if we sell 100 pools, we're going to dig between 75 and 80 of them. Some of them are pipelines, some of them financing turnouts, and so on and so forth. But let's just say for this example that you're going to do 80%, right? Well, realistically, what that means is I'm going to have to sell 24 pools, which is a very attainable goal going into the next year, right? Now, the next part becomes this. What do I need to sell 24 pools? Well, if we just covered what your closing rate is, you need 240 leads to do that, right? Well, are you getting 240 leads? The interesting thing is everybody always wants more leads, especially the online leads, because that's the most frequent question that we get, which is great. We're obviously going to do everything that we can to get you guys as many leads as we possibly can to help you guys be successful. But if we're completely honest, the worst leads that I can probably get you is online leads. The best leads that you can get, they're your referral leads. They're the leads that are going to be made with relationships, whether it's real estate agents, direct referrals, anything like that are going to be your better leads. So focus on that. But the point is you got to get granular. If I want to make that $100,000, that means I'm going to have to do 24 pools, 24 sales, means I'm going to have to draw 240 leads. If I'm only, for example, getting 200 leads from the website, that means I'm going to have to self-generate another 40 leads as it ends up coming out, right? Well, 40 leads, that's a little bit less than one additional lead a week. How are you going to do that, right? That's what I mean by goals and SMART goals. And it shouldn't just appear, I've been doing goals for the last 25 years, and you're going to get specific. You should be doing probably 10 pages of goals every year. And you want to know who goals are for? They're for you. That's it. It's an internal mechanism to keep you guys on schedule as you go forward. It's got to be not just work related either. It should be something like, what do we want to achieve financially? Which that is work, right? But what do we want to achieve? Do I want to take a vacation to Hawaii this year? Okay, well, that's a goal. How do you get that? Got to be granular, right? Do I want to buy a new car? Do I want to buy a new house? Do I want to lose 10 pounds? Do I want to go to the gym 5 days a week? Whatever the case may be, you've got to be explicitly detailed in your plan. Have it on your desk. Have it around you. Have it as something that you're going to constantly look back to keep you in check as you go forward. And here's the deal, guys. It's got to be motivational to you. It's got to be something on check that is relatable to you. Are we happy to help? Yes, I'm 100% happy to help, guide you, give you guys feedback on things that are relatable. But do this, because I promise you will feel a lot better about things as you go forward, because there's going to be times where you're winning and there's going to be times that you're losing. There's going to be times that you're ahead of where you set your goals. There's going to be times behind. But as long as you've got those goals, you're going to wake up every week knowing the things that you've got to do for that next week, to be able to step that up. And I promise you, if you hit that, you're most likely going to exceed your goals in many levels. You know, my goal is to take my 5 kids on, let's say, to Atlantis this year, right? Well, typically speaking, what you've got to do to get on those premier trips is you got to do somewhere around $2.5 to $3 million in digs, which is going to mean, in this case, 25 to 30 pools. You can reverse engineer that whole thing from there. And I want you guys to think about that. Write these things down. You know, one of the wonderful tools that we have today is AI. AI can help you to a significant degree write really good goals. Just about every top salesperson I've talked to has got some sort of a goal or a plan. And that's really what it is. A goal is very simply just a plan for your life every single year. They've got a plan on how they're going to contact their customers. They got a plan on how they're going to get leads. They got a plan on the next step and the next step and the next step as you go forward. So just make sure that you guys do that in some way, shape, or form. If you don't, what you're going to do is you're going to find at the end of the year when it's November and you're like, I only hit 15 out of the 20 pools that I wanted to dig, or 20 out of the 30 pools. And it's going to be very hard to catch up at that point because you didn't keep yourself. Next. Any questions, by the way, before I move on? Any questions on goals? Goals is a good one. I like talking about goals a lot. Any questions from anybody on goals? I'm going to ask you guys questions. Gustavo.
Brian, I got a question.
Go for it. Who's that?
This is Tanner.
Go ahead.
How do I dial in as I go forward? Remember it said stay kind of flexible. How do I think about dialing in my goals? Because I feel like I don't have reliable historical data to help me set accurate goals up front.
Well, sometimes you're just not. Yeah, sometimes you're not going to have that, right? Now, here's what you can do. And let's say I'm going to assume, and tell me if I'm wrong, Tanner. I'm going to assume that this has got to do with, like, obviously financial goals and kind of lead draw goals. Would that be fair?
Yeah, definitely financial.
So you don't necessarily have historicals, but what you've got to take is you've got to take your current basis. And I'll give it to you guys where you're at. Nationally, we're closing at 7%. We should be able to do at least 10%, realistically. We just should. If we practice, if we work on ourselves, we can all get to 10%. I think that's pretty attainable. But you always, at least for me, I'm going to base goals on a couple of different tiers, right? And you've got to focus in on, hey, if I close at 7% versus I close at 10%, these are the required outcomes, right? If I close at 10%, I need 240 leads. If I close at 7%, I'm going to need 270 leads, right? And you're going to build different formulas for that. And those formulas are going to be, how do I generate it? Well, for example, what I used to have to do is, because we didn't have as many marketing mediums, is I used to have to pass out flyers. And flyers, the return rate was only 1 to 2%, right? So for every 100 flyers I'd pass out, I'd get 1 or 2 leads, which sounds terrible, right? But remember what I said, is I knew that I could close at about 30%. So what that meant is if I went out in a day, and it would take, I promise you, it would take me all day, and I'd actually grab a couple of the guys on the excavation crew or whatever, and it would take us most of the day to pass out 100 flyers, but I knew I was going to get somewhere between 10 and 20 leads to make that happen, ultimately converting, right? You just have to find ways in the plan. So one of the things, if I was to apply this to a modern medium 10, Remember what I was talking about social media? Social media, especially for our own, will apply on 3 things. 1, you guys go out there, you do 3 posts a week on your personal page, your social media. There's a lot of good salespeople. Chip Farrell, so on and so forth, really good at promoting themselves on social media. Every week you should do at least 3 posts, and the 3 posts should be this: 1, on something that's about you that makes you a real person. 2, something that is local, right? Local restaurant, local chili cook-off, local whatever. That is local to the area, so they know you're a real person, that you're local to the area, right? 3rd should be your profession. Meaning, go look at a dig. Do a social on a dig, right? Do a social on one of the designs you've done. That will, over time, I want to stress this. It is over time. It takes time to build a following, but over time, you're going to get a following to do that. So, kind of to answer your question, is you're going to use a couple of variables, but you're going to do it with a high degree of percentage that you can achieve these things. Even if you have a very, let's say, limited base, right, of knowledge, you already kind of have an idea of how certain things are going to perform. And if you even have some more specifics, I can get you even more hard on what you'd be looking for. So does that help a little bit? Do you want me to go kind of like on another level with that, Tanner?
Yeah, I guess, like, let's say I feel like I'm not reaching the goal, and maybe I didn't set it so that it was achievable, or I feel like I need to get better at something in order to achieve it. Like, how do I recalibrate as I go along?
Get more specific, and I'll give you a more specific example.
If I set 4 million and I figure out I have to book, I'm gonna go on 8 meetings per week, but that's assuming my close rate is whatever 5 to 7%, and I'm not even achieving 8 meetings, or I'm only closing at 4%. Like, how do I?
Yeah. So okay, great question. Great question. So here's how you do it. So first of all, you got one problem: closing rates, right? You start to take 4 million. That's going to be 40 pulls, right? And if you're at, let's say, a 5%, we'll just use this for round numbers, right? You're have to be getting upwards of like 500 leads, or close to 500 leads. Not doable. I'm just telling you, it's not doable. Realistically, as a salesperson, because here's really what I want to get you guys to, and ultimately, I really don't care about leads as much as I care about something called a sit, meaning getting you in-house for appointment. So if you want to get next level, the idea is you want to shoot for 10 to 15 sits in a month, okay? But before you get to that point, the challenge is closing, okay? So the challenge is closing. If you're closing at a 5% rate, that's going to make every other metric that you're shooting for downstream that much harder. So what I would invest in is super heavy sales training, guys. Sales training. So obviously, kudos to you guys for being on this. But guess what? Do you know how many $5 million salespeople we have in this company? Lots. I would probably start by reaching out to some of them. That's a resource, right? Is as passe as it sounds, when's the last time you guys listened to a sales training on either YouTube or audiobook, or read a book on sales training? Seriously, when's the last time you guys did that? I've read dozens and dozens. I'm pretty sure my dad's read hundreds, right? My dad's a guy that sold 100 pools in 9 months. That's some pretty hardcore sales training when you get down to it. Sales is guy, by the way, it's not like selling. I'm not getting a customer something they don't want. They're inviting us home in their home to hopefully get them something that they've dreamt about, that they've aspired for. We're in a wonderful business. We're in a business that people want, right? But we've got to communicate better. So what you've got to do, at least in that specific scenario, Tanner, you got to focus on sales training would be my first thing. Because what you've got to do is call it recalibration or whatever you will. First step is go back and work on that rate. Here would be my example. So if you said, for example, 4 or 5% is your closing rate. On the pools that you have lost, where the customer said they've gone to somebody else or whatever, call those customers. Ask them, why did I lose that pool? Why did I not get that pool, right? Got to find out. Intel is going to allow you to win, and then brush up on those skills. I think what people focus on too much, and it just always kind of like blows my mind a little bit, is they focus on what are known as the soft skills or the closing skills. Closing is like 10 or 20% of overall sales. It's really a minor part. You have to understand, closing is a process. It is from the very first question that customer asks, step by step by step by step, and you're answering each question they have, because each question they have is ultimately an objection, to the point to where they don't have any more questions, aka no other reasons to say no. And if you do it right, you're going to get to a point where customers ultimately say, like, as you're presenting them the design, as you present them the price, they're going to say, what's next? If you find yourself in scenarios where you're having to oftentimes, quote unquote, hard close, you're not doing it right. It's not required. It is not required what you do. But what I would say though is start with your closing tech, or not your closing techniques. Start with your overall sales techniques, how your packaging pulls. And I'll give you an example, Tanner. If you're running into customers, and I guarantee you this is happening with a lot of you guys right now. If the customer is saying, oh, you're too expensive, it's not that you're too expensive most of the times. It's that the number that you presented to them is too high. What do I mean by that? What I mean is the pool you designed is not the pool you should have designed. You should have designed something within their budget to start with. And if they really, really, really wanted it, you let them upgrade. But I'm telling you, that is one of the most prevalent things that I see is we're over-designing way too much right now. And the problem is, if you ask the customer what do they want on a pool, they want everything. And here's why. I can tell you right now what a Ford F-150 is going to cost. Why? Because I can go to any dealership in town and there's going to be a range of what a Ford F-150 costs. It's going to cost $50,000 to $100,000, right? It's a known quality, it's a known range, it's a known truck. Now ask your customer, what does a pool cost? They haven't a clue. Pools in our industry, because every pool is different, they could cost $30,000, they could cost $200,000. And the customer would not even understand the variables, right? I can do a 14 by 28 pool for $60,000. I can do a 14 by 28 pool for $150,000, can't we? Right? That's where you need to start to maneuver a little bit. Does that help a little bit, Tanner, on getting a little bit more granular on some things?
Yes.
So just, failure is not a bad thing, guys. In fact, it's the things that you learn the most on. You learn from those few that you don't get. And then you probably won't do the same thing that you did those few times as you get there. I would stress this, so don't come out of the gate saying that you're going to do $4 million. Let's say it's your first year and you're going to do $4 million. Have people done $4 million in their first year? Yes, they have actually. But you got to be very, very detailed in your plans. You gotta be hoofing it every single day, and you've got to know what you're doing every Monday. Like if you're gonna do that in your first year, because remember, if you're gonna do $4 million in your first year, you're not gonna have a whole lot of customer base, right? Referral. You're gonna have to work that much harder for it. Meaning you're gonna work 70 or 80 hours a week, always having something to do. If you're ever waiting for a lead, that's not what you should be doing. There's always something to do. Good question.
I got a question.
Go for it.
So let's back up a little bit. So, you talk about goals and closing and stuff like that. You talk about 15. We had a conversation here a couple weeks ago about 15 sits a month.
Yeah.
We're getting the lead flow. We're not meeting our goals and our closing goals because we're not getting our sits that we need. That's where we need help. I mean, I think Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, you're on the call. I think he's darn close to 100% closings on when we get in the house. So our pricing's good. We got good report to customers. We don't have a lot of competition, but we're having so much trouble just getting in the house. Just to get the ball rolling.
Yep. And that's a pretty common thing, especially with online leads, by the way. So here's what you're going to run into. So I'll give you a couple scenarios on it. So you're going to run into seasonality. And this is why we don't kill leads. Don't ever mark leads dead, by the way, in Premier Build, because we will continue to remark them. What is going to happen, and it's probably happening with a lot of you guys right now, is you actually are probably right now seeing your sit rates go up. Why? It's March. It's getting warmer. And there's seasonality to this, right? Whereas let's say a Facebook lead, and these are actually somewhat realistic numbers. Let's say a Facebook lead in November is going to get me a 30% sit rate, meaning 3 out of 10 will get me in a house, versus a Facebook lead in like May is going to get me a 6 out of 10 sit rate, right? There's variances on that. So understand that. The second part of this equation would be this. Do you guys use AI or any form of AI? I was going to hit that actually, Carrie. Do you guys use AI? Tony, I was asking you a question.
Okay, you're asking me directly. Actually, I just signed up with Brave today. I had to call them. So To date, no, but hopefully within the next few weeks, by end of March, hopefully we got it rolling.
So here's kind of a really interesting takeaway from this stuff. So if we were to look, for example, 3 years ago, and we were running appointments, we were probably, like I said, only competing against 2 or 3 other pool companies, if that, right? If that. And some of those guys would be like saying to the customers, yeah, I can get to you in like 2 years, which is just insane. It's different now because, first of all, we know that all the other competitors are just like desperate. They're like on their last string. They're about to go out of business kind of deal. They're in bad ways. So if they get that one rare lead, because they are certainly not going to draw the 100,000 leads that we're going to draw this year, they're going to be calling the dickens out of that lead. They will be pursuing that to a different level. So just understand that. Like, the competition is going to work a lot harder because they're just not getting enough. What we have seen is a minimum 10 to 12% bump in sit rates when we adopt an AI. I don't fully quite get why it's always the case, but it seems to work. I've talked to a number of offices and they're like, yeah, I would call my customer, text my customer, email my customer 6 times and they just wouldn't respond. But I tell you, we put an AI and start doing it. It's simple like this. When you do an AI, there's 2 elements to this. It's your call cadence or text cadence. We've actually found people respond to text a lot more than they do actual calls. But for example, one office of ours, they've actually got a cadence of about, I think it's something like 9 times. 9 times they will actually text the customer before that customer will convert to an email and so on and so forth. So all said and done, we're talking about 15 touch points by the end of the month. And they basically are I'm going to call it pushy because it gets things done, to the effect that the customer either sits with their appointment or they just say, no, I'm not interested at this point in time. And it works. And their sit rates did go up. And their sit rates did go up pretty significantly, right? So it would be one of those things, but I would also do this. You got to generate leads other ways. Like we talked about home shows here. I used to love home shows. Home shows are people that are actually looking to do something in their homes. Now, again, it's got to be a large enough home show. But if you're doing a home show, for example, don't go and take a lead. You go and you set an appointment is what you do. And then the other thing would just be lead gen in other places. Like, you guys ever gone to a real estate office and just passed out our brochures? Our brochures are nice. They're really nice. We give them to you guys for free. I would go out to a real estate office, start passing out those brochures for free and say, hey, if you guys are ever doing like an open house and you need me to design a pool for that open house, I got a 32-inch screen in the back of my truck. I'll plug it in. They can see prospectively what they're doing. The thing is I put my card there, I put my brochures there, and the people going through the open house would take the information and I'd end up getting leads that way. It wasn't necessarily the house that I was doing the open house for. My point is this. You're going to have to work leads harder in the season as we're going into spring, summer. Your sit rates are just going to go up. And yeah, in the winter, hopefully you can divest and get lead sources from other places. But that is where it's at, right? So balance the flow out as much as you can, generate those referral bases, and get a little unconventional in some of the places you go. I don't know if that fully helps you guys. I mean, again, it's a little bit of seasonality. It's a little bit of follow-up. I'm really pushing every single office to get on some form of AI by the end of the year. But if you think about it like this, guys, if you can get in the house pretty consistently 10 or 15 times a month, that's the real focus of what you're trying to do. Probably even leaning towards 10. Because if you think about it, you start doing 10 new homes every month, right? And it usually takes call it a 2-call close. It's somewhere between 2 and 3 calls is what most everybody's taking right now. You start to roll 10 in every month, and you sell some of those, you start building some of those, it gets really busy really quickly. Not to mention any referrals that will come along. So does that help a little bit, Tony? Cool.
Yes, thank you.
This is good, though. I mean, this is what this trains for, guys, is these kind of conversations. Jacob, you had a question?
Yeah. My biggest challenge here recently is just getting a budget out of a client. I tried the tactic of showing them different pools and doing the, what do you think this pool costs? And then kind of giving them the rough price range of that. But then with that, like you were saying, people not even knowing what pools cost, I mostly just get the answer of, I don't know. So give me a number and we'll base it off of that. But then I can't exactly, I always end up going over their budget.
They always know, by the way. There's always a range. I promise you, there's always a range. And so again, this is actually a big one, and I will tell you guys, this is where you will have to be a little pushy if you can't get it the entire way. People always have a budget, right? I don't just go buy a new car and I don't go out and be like, yeah, I don't know if I can afford that $200,000 Lambo or that $50,000 Honda or whatever, right? People know. Now, how do you do this? Here's another way I'll actually get it. You know, the picture way is a good way. I like that way a lot. If that's unsuccessful, then what you do is you probably at this point in time discuss, Jacob, with that customer a number of options that they want, right? And let's just say for this example, you know, we've gone out, we've gone through the whole process, we've gone through the pictures, we've walked through the backyard, we've painted the ideas of, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, again, you want a 14 by 28 freeform pool. You talked about potentially wanting a waterfall. You talked about potentially wanting, a spa. Right now, everything that you're showing me right now is going to fall into a range of 60 to about 80,000. How does that sound? Right? Because you're going through these appointments and they're telling you the things that they like and the things that they don't like. And so you can at least form an idea. Here's the idea. Even if a customer is not telling me the exact, I'm reading them. I'm looking at them. If I'm saying, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, right now, everything that you're telling me, I'm going to come up with some designs. We'll do the pricing a la carte so you can spend what you want to spend to get the pool that you love. And remember that line. I want you to spend what you'd like to spend to get the pool that you love. We're going to a la carte the pricing. But right now, a pool like that is going to come into a range of 60 to 80,000. I leave a very wide range because I have not designed the pool yet. And there's going to be some variables. The spa is going to modify the price pretty darn big, right? And what'll happen usually if you do this correctly is the customer is basically going to say like, oh, okay, that's the range, or that's too high, or, you know, they'll never almost say that was too low. That doesn't really happen. But the point is the conversation should be happening. Or if, let's say you do this and say, hey, that pool's going to be between $60,000 and $80,000. I'll even go into detail and say this spa is going to run between $15,000 and $25,000, depending on if I raise it, if I lower it. You come across as an advocate. Now, here's why I'm not afraid to give prices. I've not designed anything yet, which gives me a lot of play on how to do things. So if you come across from an advocate's angle, because pricing is a highly adversarial question, if you come across from that angle of, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you ask me something, I'm going to tell you, right? You've opened up that conversation to the point that, yeah, they're going to get it. And even if you run into that, you know, because what I like to say is 80% of what I'm going to say is going to work 80% of the time, which is no overwhelming win. If you run into that 20% that are just like playing the cards close, watch their faces. Their faces are going to tell you, their body language is going to tell you. This is body language folks out there that are pretty good. It's going to tell you whether you're high or low on the budget. That makes sense? I mean, let me ask you this, Jacob. Do you think you could comfortably execute any of those things?
I feel like I could. I just need more practice at it at this point. I need to really, you know, I've taken notes of a lot of this and I need to just review it, kind of get it in my head before the appointment, you know, before I walk through the door, you know, take a moment in my car and just go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it.
Let me ask you this.
I think what you just told me is very helpful.
And I'm glad it is. That's what we're here to do, guys, is learn. I love sales, man. Sales is fun. Do you guys do like research on your customers? Meaning before you go into a house, Jacob, how much do you know about your customer? Have you, and this is gonna sound weird, but do you ever like Facebook them? Do you ever Instagram them? Like, do you look them up?
I haven't gotten into that habit yet. Some of the other salesmen, in fact, the top salesman in our group, our team lead, he advocates for that heavily. And it's one of those things, I'm so focused kind of on my presentation and making sure that I'm getting, you know, what I need to get across to the customer that I kind of forget to do that. And I know that's a habit I need to get into.
Hey, Brian, I want to bring up a point though. I've had that work the opposite for me with one of my salesmen.
Yeah, you can't know too much.
Too much. So they're screening that person. They look at the Facebook page and they're like, no way he can afford a pool. So they're not contacting him. He fell into that trap.
Oh, that would piss me off though.
It does. It was ridiculous.
That would piss me off. Yeah. Because here's the deal. The customer is inviting us into their home. The customer is inviting us.
But he was prejudging him before he tried to contact him.
That's messed up. Don't do that.
Hey,
It costs
Brian,
yourself money. So
it's creating that relationship. And
Yes.
you're already creating that bond. So you don't need every single detail, but you can do, you know, they have dogs, you know, they have kids. Construct that conversation around those things and you'll be successful.
you nailed it right there. It's a part of relationship building. And again, first of all, if you're pre-qualifying customers and you see like, oh, I'm not going to go out there, they have no money, don't do that. That's dumb. You never know who the literal millionaire next door is, right? The second part of it is exactly what you just said. It's relationship building. Do they have dogs? Do they enjoy the same sports teams that I do? Do they love the same restaurants that I do, right? Oh, shoot, we're in the same baseball league or whatever. It's a relational point. Here's what I've actually seen people do on Instagram and stuff before, and Pinterest and whatnot. They start tagging like themes and favorite resorts and this and that and the other. Like, when you do that, you are really getting a next level of information. And you're separating yourself from the competition because everything I'm telling you, these are things the competition doesn't do. You got to know some basic things about your customers you end up going forward because it's going to be their likes. And one of these stories is actually kind of interesting. I'll share what on the sales ad way back in the day. So I ended up going out to this customer's house. This is a long time ago. Anyways, I think he was a police officer, and I think she was a paramedic, if I recall. And one of the things that just kind of came up in conversation, because a lot of it's conversationally based, is they had just gotten back from a place called Santorini. It was their honeymoon. Santorini has got this very distinctive white Greek architecture, like all the buildings are white, it's on this volcanic rim, it's super cool. I've been there, so I know. But they're like, we want our backyard to look like Santorini. Now, what we were able to relate over, and this is the relational point, we had both been in this place that they were very passionate about, right? They wanted to replicate that in their backyard, and so I very much did that with their design, a more classic design, lots of characteristics. But a lot of the pool sale was done during we related, we listened, what is your reasoning behind it, and it told me what they want us to design, and that's the relational aspect. If you get people to a point, because I don't just like people selling out for. Rapport will get you a distance. It's rapport with technical skill and relating people. It's all the things that you need, right? But it's going to get you additional information that you don't have. Now, what you should do, because you said you were focusing on getting your construction presentation, practice, I'm not even kidding, practice on your family, practice in the mirror. You need to know your construction presentation 100% by memory. Here's why. During the sales process, what a homeowner will do, let's just pretend we got this linear path, right? This is our sales presentation. We want to go on a linear path. The customer's going to ask you a question. The question's going to take you off on another path, right? The way to do it is go to that point, customer asks another question, you answer the question, but then you pull it back to the path, right? Now, this is going to open some doors for some conversation, but you always eventually circle back. It's not like, oh, I immediately jump and then go back. No, it's, hey, we spent 5 minutes talking about that. That was fantastic. Now let me continue on my presentation. But the only way you do that, gotta have it memorized. Gotta have it up here. And realistically, if you want to go to the next level, you've got to memorize pricing to a large degree. You don't have to know everything exact. But you got to be able to know that if a customer wanted an 18-inch raised bond beam wall with a 3-foot shooter set, you got to have a pretty good idea off the back of your head, like what is that going to cost? The faster that you can pull things like that out of your back pocket, it's going to end up helping you. It's going to show confidence within the customer. Customers can sense confidence. Customers can sense lack of confidence just as easily as well. And so if you're not at that point, practice in the mirror. Now, if I got paid, you'd want to have a funny exercise. If you want to start to calculate this, how much do I get paid per hour to practice in the mirror? You're going to find you get paid a whole lot, especially when your closing rate goes up. Equate everything to $1 per hour, which you guys are doing. Anyways, home shows. I liked home shows. Home shows were something that we could end up setting appointments for right out of. Any questions just about different interiors and finishes and guidance on this? Because this is kind of an interesting one. A lot of people don't like pebble finishes, especially the larger pebble techs, because after feet get a little bit waterlogged, it does get rough. What you want to be able to do on this, and I found it to be very helpful, if you're showing a picture, I shouldn't say picture, but getting more like the tablets, right? Because usually one of the things that homeowners do is they'll pick out 5 or 10 pictures that you like on the website, mark them out, we'll have our tablets. Start to pay attention to how blue they want their water, what color they want their water. You can start to guide them as to where they're at. I like to relate it back to what resorts have you been to, what did you like about the resort, what did you not. It all ends up helping you sell just the different types of avenues. Salesperson manual. Here's the deal about salesperson manual. What it means to you today will mean something very different in 6 months, and it's going to mean something very, very different in 2 years from now. Why? You're just going to get a lot better at what you do. However, the fundamentals of what is in that sales manual, they truly do work. What you guys have got to focus on is this. Just because I give an example of how to do something does not mean that you have to do the thing exactly in every word that I said. What you do have to do is understand, okay, what was he trying to get across? Like we just talked about pricing, right? But then you got to make it your own. You got to make it your own in your own words. Because when you talk in your own words, you'll obviously be more confident. I think the key on a lot of those things, whether you're talking about in the sales manual, is just to do the thing, right? Find out the budget. Here's a few ways to ask about the budget. You know, find out more about the customer. Here's a few ways to do that, right? And you will find this. It's a game of odds. Like, you know, call it blackjack and a casino. In the casino, the blackjack odds are roughly 52% in favor of the casino, about 48% in your favor. That 2% is all the difference in the world. Just as Wes was saying yesterday, you start to raise your closing rate by 2%, it's actually pretty impactful. And so as you start to do some of these things, you start to execute them in a prescriptive manner in the sales manual, you're going to see your closing rate increase by 1%. You're going to see your closing rate increase by 2%. Before you know it, you've got 5% more. And 5% more is now 50% better than it was before, right? It's just a process. It's a process like anything. It takes practice. I'm a little bit different. I don't believe anybody's like a truly quote unquote born salesperson. I believe like anything, you've got to train out, you've got to practice it, you got to get it very good. Any questions related to the sales manual, or even I like some of these questions that were going off on the riff on just some of the challenges that you guys are running into with customers. Anything related to that, and please feel free to ask. Let me ask you this, guys. Anybody ever running into the issue of price? Anybody running into the issue of, hey, the competition is $20,000 cheaper? I know you all are. Have you guys, let me ask you this. I'll ask you this one very, very specifically, Jacob. Do you guys do a weekly sales meeting? I hope every office does. Do you guys do that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you guys get competitor bids in that weekly sales meeting?
There it is. Oh, my
Yeah, we
God.
got you. I got you. Yeah.
We do sales meetings, and can you repeat that last question you said?
Do you get competitor bids in those sales meetings?
It's brought up rarely.
It needs to be brought up frequently. Here's why. The competition doesn't change that much. If you figure them out, they tend to be very, very slow to change. But here's what the competition is doing in most of your markets. They're getting you guys on one or two things. And I'm just going to give you a super simple example. Let's say you're going out there, you're selling a saltwater generator for $2,000. They're probably just going across and they're selling it for $1,500, right? And since that's one of the very few relatable items for a customer, the customer is probably perceiving, well, oh, Premier's XYZ more expensive. When all the competition is doing is they're reallocating the money, they're just moving it somewhere else in the job, right? Or, actually, in most cases, it's a completely different pool. It's a completely different pool. You drew a 500 square foot pool, they drew a 400 square foot pool, so on and so forth, right? I can make a 14 by 28 pool that's 98 perimeter. I can make a 14 by 28 pool that's 80 perimeter, right? But there's a big difference in price. So what I recommend each and every one of y'all do, and this is going to be very helpful, since some of you are new and you'll be able to pull this off, but you might have to get a spouse or a friend or somebody else. You gotta shop the competition get the bid sheets, understand what they're doing, right? This is about us trying to communicate to a customer better. If you don't know how the customer is being explained to you or how the customer is being taught things, right? Then you're not going to be able to relate. Obviously, we're going to do things our way and walk them through, but man, you're really tying one hand behind your back by not doing that. What we used to do every Tuesday, we'd have a sales meeting, right? Talking about the deals we got, talking about the deals you didn't get. Then we would go over bid sheets from the competition. And then we try and find out where were they basically hiding money. They were just moving money around, hiding money. In most cases, it was completely different pools. But it was important to walk the customer through it. Explain to them the things that they don't know. Because again, that's the case, guys. If we get down to it, I can be the cheapest builder in the country if I really want to. Our buying power is that good. Our cost per acquisition is that good. But our skill set is higher than that. The way that we build a pool is better than that. I build a pool the same way I want it to be built in my backyard. We're not gonna do things for the customer that would be inappropriate or incorrect or wrong, right? So the idea being, find out what your customers are doing. Discuss it with the other salespeople. That's the reason why Sacramento, I think, has like 5 or 6 guys that do $5 million a year. They share the knowledge. What they realize is one boat raises all other boats as we go into that next, right? The rising tide raises everybody up. It's the same thing. We start sharing that knowledge. It ends up being very helpful. But if you're not shopping your competition or you don't have an idea of your competition, shoot, if you don't even know who your top 3 competitors are, that would be problematic. So,
Brian, I want to share something about exactly what you're talking about and then get your opinion on something. So when we run into $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, our competitors are cheaper. We get their proposals, we look at them, we've done it. But what we end up doing is finding that they are not specifically putting certain things on the quote, like electric for the pool pump, dirt haul. So we have to go back to our customers, again, get their confidence that we're not trying to BS them and say, hey, look at the difference in quote. We're turnkey, right? We're doing it all. We got it all. But they're $20,000 or $15,000 less because they're not showing you these extra costs of having 50 yards of dirt in your backyard that you have to pay $2,500 to remove. They're finding these deals later down the road.
Yep.
But that's kind of what we're running against. The biggest, with our competitors, they're not showing the whole picture.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Sylvan's like famous for that. Like they sell a pool that is oftentimes that can't be, like they're famous for like shorting electric.
Yeah.
This is where you gotta get hyper aggressive though with basically showing the customer where they're at. And I'll flat out, I'll walk in the house and say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I'm the biggest builder in the country by a multiple of times. I can be anybody's business, especially if you get into those things. And then get them to walk you through the bid and be like, well, just ask about this, just ask about that, right? And get the customer and then always schedule the next appointment. Because if they're doing the back and forth thing, for example, let's say like they won't sign because they got an appointment with Anthony and Sylvan like next Tuesday, be like, great, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, can I come and see you next Wednesday? Or right after the guy. Like I will just seed and be like a dog in a bone right after. And what I'm doing is I'm going to plant landmines up. I'm going to say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, ask about this electric because based upon this plan that you're showing me right here, you're about 75 feet short. And the way that I look at that, that's going to be another $1,500. You plant the landmines and they're going to catch the other guy lying and it makes them look so bad. But that's the thing is you've got to do all these things and present your case to get the customer to be that open about the process. Because here's the deal. The customer doesn't want to be taken aback by smoke and mirrors, which happens, which is crazy, but it does. If you're that advocate, remember, take everything from an adversarial into an advocate, and you got to be just plainly spoken to the point that they are open to talk to you. And then be aggressive about it. And flat out say, I can beat anybody. Because here's the deal. I'm sure, Tony, when you guys go out, and you end up pricing that pool by Anthony or whoever ends up doing it, you're like, oh yeah, we're actually cheaper if we build that same pool. Like, cause that's like usually the case. It's like
you're absolutely right. I can be that cheap guy, but do I lower myself to that level, which I don't want to, and we haven't, or are we their advocate and try to teach them? Look, we're not comparing apples to apples. This is what you're getting with us, but it's still an uphill battle because they don't want to spend an extra $10,000, $15,000. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I'll tell the customer, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here's the deal. I can build that exact. I'll build you that pool right there, but they're charging you too much for that. They're charging you 76. I'll do it for 72, right?
Yeah.
And then the point is, I will always get the contract. Why? Because then I'm going to try to upgrade them and be like, here's why you don't want this. Here's why you don't want that. And if you get the contract, what'll end up happening most of the time, the vast majority of the time, the customer's going to go out there and be like, you know what, we're only going to get to do this once. I will get every pool though. I will not pass on the pools. The point is though, once a customer signs a contract, they're relieved, right? They've got anxiety during this entire process as well. And you'll find that post-contract, there's a different level of calmness with the customer that you can actually accomplish a lot of things and just be like, I used to do a lot of addenda right up to the day it did because I was not going to let anybody else get that day. But if I could educate the customers on why I was doing certain things, to be like, hey, I'm just going to use this for an example. Why do you not want that 150 square foot filter? Let me walk you through it. Ultimately, it's going to be their call, but you get them to upgrade most of the time to be happy within the product. Because two things would have happened. One, you would have educated them. And it would have been their call should they want to do it. But if they've already signed with you, they've got a level of trust with you. And because you've now educated them, they will likely upgrade. It doesn't mean all the time, but the fact of the matter is I'm still going to get that pool. I'm not going to let the competition. Every new yard sign counts. It's that many more pools you're going to do. And the apples to apples thing is it's a challenging point that you don't want to find yourself in because there's never going to be apples to apples. The competition is always going to take shortcuts. And when I focus on Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I'm going to give you the best value because I've got the best buying power. You go into Costco. Costco's not the cheapest on anything, but it's value, right? And I use those examples that are relatable to a customer, but I will get every single deal out there. And yeah, you know, the era when I was selling in 2008, dude, it was hard. The market was going down 500 points in that day, and that was a significant 500 points in that day. But the point is you had to do a lot of addenda selling because the customers have a very fixed budget. At that point in time as well. And, you know, let them upgrade the things that are really important to them. We're going to build a good pool either way. But realistically, slightly larger plumbing here or this, that, the other there, it's not going to be the make or break in a lot of these things. Like, I'll just go get that deal. I would even take a deal slightly short sometimes, knowing that I have a good chance of getting addenda up during the process. But even if I didn't, and it was, let's say, a new neighborhood that I was trying to get in, yeah, I was going to do what it took to get in that new neighborhood because the problem is if that competition gets in that new neighborhood, your net sale is going to be that much harder. So it's a little bit of warfare out there. So good questions, guys. Good questions. Anything sales related because we won't get all the way through the slides here, but I like this conversation and where this is going.
I got one more.
Go for it.
And these are just, you know, we've been doing this going on 5 years now, and this is some of the problems that I've seen in getting the second sit. Okay, these people, and I'm seeing it more and more. They're busy. They have kids in sports. They have trouble just getting us in for the first appointment for 2 to 3 hours at a time. Last thing they want to do in today's age is for us to come back for another 2 or 3 hours at another appointment and get both the wife and husband there. And they're like, "Why don't you just email it to me? We do everything over email. Why can't you just?" So give me your point of view on how to push that second appointment and be more firm with it. I mean, obviously, there's some customers that just say, absolutely no, we're doing everything email. We're not going to fight. But how do you push that? How do you persuade them to get that second?
Here's where I have some maybe disagreement with you or the customers or whoever it may be on this process. So remember what I just said, our average pool is $100,000. Yeah, if I'm going to spend $100,000 and really any sane person, yeah, you're going to spend some time with that person, right? So here's what you do. So when you go on that first appointment, and we've got some pretty darn good separators, beautiful brochures, beautiful websites. You've got the story, so on and so forth, and you got to go in there with those bold but very true statements about who we are. We are the biggest. We do have the best buying power, right? Never leave that first appointment without having the second appointment. I don't care if you do the second appointment at your showroom. Some of you guys don't have a showroom, and it's helpful, but I can close equally good at either showroom or not, right? If I was to do the second appointment, I'd always cast it onto their big screen, but I will not leave after that first time. I will not come back to that customer. I will not email bids because that's just you're not even going to be able to tell a story. You know what I used to like to say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you're only going to get to do this once, right? Once that hole's in the ground, it's a little bit permanent. But you got to do some kind of like qualifiers, right? For example, let's say they're both really easy, right? But let's say the wife in this case is the decision maker. I'm going to need whoever's going to be involved in the construction process to be on the next appointment. Okay? So, do I like having both people there? Yes, it's highly impactful. But at least designate the person. So when you say, I need whoever is going to be involved in the construction and design. So I'll say this on the first phone call. I need whoever is going to be involved in the construction and design process on my first appointment. You're starting to qualify, okay, who's the person that's really the pusher behind this? Who's my ally in that house behind this? Because sometimes you're going to walk into scenarios where, let's say the wife really wants it and husband doesn't want it, or the wife really wants it and husband could care less and he's like, you just do whatever. I mean, you're going to get a variance of scenarios there, but designate who you are, but don't get in the process of emailing things, because then you're not differentiating yourself from anybody else in the process. And if they're remotely serious, and if we remotely did our job on the first appointment, because here's the deal. You just spend a whole lot of time. If you do it right, like a first appointment, honestly, should take you about an hour and a half, 2 hours if you're doing it right. Don't rush it. It should take you a long time. You're going to get your second appointment most of the time. But if you go in and you rush through your first appointment, you only spend 30 or 45 minutes with them, you didn't create any rapport, you didn't go through any of the merits, then yes, you're going to have a harder time doing it. And I will bet you that if you do that, if you spend more time, if you go through all the things that we did, if you start that advocate's angle and really tell the story, you're going to get back into that house 80% of the time. Yes, you're always going to have the weird people, but 80% of the time it's going to end up working. Now, what is my policy on emailing stuff? I won't do it. I just won't do it. Because I can't tell a story. I mean, you're just not being able to tell a story of the value, and you might as well just be throwing spam against the wall, because here's the problem. Remember what I said, 80% of my clients have never gotten a call before. So I'm sending them a bid sheet that has got a whole bunch of items like I've got 24 foot of 18-inch face bond beam with a 2-foot shear set. What does that mean to a homeowner? I mean, you see my point? So we're throwing them in there blind. They have no idea what's going on, and you're not going to be able to discuss the variables. So I get it. Does it happen, Tony? Yes, but I'm also a believer that I can get at least 80% in second time back in the house. But it's all predicated. You have to remember, it's not the hard close. It's the 30 steps that you took before that gets you there. Troy had a question.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like you lose complete control if you're willing to do. If they're going to buy a new car, they're going to kick the tires on it. They're going to spend 2 hours, 3 hours a day, multiple lots for half the price. Much less you get somebody looking at a Range Rover, new Escalade, the exotics. I mean, when you're talking about $100,000 plus, if they're not willing to spend 2-3 hours, it's not worth your time either. So you devalue your product and your stance if you tell them, no, this is how we do it, and then you go back on it. Now, there's probably, special circumstances that may do that. I mean, we had one where their child was, had some disability, and so, but we still went out to the house. But our office is 100%, nothing gets sent to the customer without the presentation in our office.
No, that's excellent, Troy. I agree with you 100%. Now, again, this is where the practice comes into play, though, the rebuttal training, right? You have got to have a rebut for every single reason. If again, like you said, our average pool is $100,000. Customers not all doing this willy-nilly. Neither did they just contact one person. They've usually contacted 3 or 5 or 7 other people. So they are taking the process somewhat seriously, right? So the only reason they're doing that is because by the third salesperson that went in there on the first appointment, they are so confused. They're just like, yeah, just speak me some bid sheets. Just speak me some bid sheets. And we've not separated the correct way. And this is why I'm saying, slow it down. Take an hour and a half to 2 hours on that first appointment. Relationship with the customer. Talk about the value. Tell them we're the Intercom Gorilla. Nobody can beat you, right? These are the things that are going to be remembered, because here's the deal. The competition is not you. The competition is not the biggest in the world. The competition does not have Costco-like buying power, right? The competition does not have thousands of people of experience, right? This is what your competition's going against. So the only thing that they're always going to negotiate on is going to be price. And know that. Have your butts. So, go for it. Paul just walked in, so he's got to hop in. All right, guys, give me the toughest question. The toughest objection that you ever come up with, and I'll see if I can be worthy enough to answer it for you. Somebody's got to have the courage to ask.
Hey, Paul, I got something that in Utah, landscapers can build pools, and there's been a few bids that they beat my pool bid because they're hiding some of their costs in the landscape bid. The reason we know that is because we have a shopping guy who has done some of the pools for them, and he's let us know that they've been hiding some of that cost. You know, on paper, it looks like we're building $40,000 more than where they're at.
Well, that's a bigger discussion. You know, I've had people also say to me, I lost a pool because we had a warranty issue that we didn't take care of down the street. And my first retort would be, do you think that's really the reason they did this? And they said, well, yeah, that's what they told me. Well, I said, then why did they claim in the house? They already had a preconceived idea that I was
recording in progress.
They obviously don't have a good reputation for doing warranty work. Why would they waste their time to have you in their house? Sometimes customers say things because they don't want to say, you didn't create enough value. I don't have enough confidence in you. I don't trust you enough. And most of the time we lose pools because the value proposition isn't equated based on dollars and cents. The value proposition is based on who they feel best about, who they think they're going to get what they want, and who can provide it for them better. So a lot of reasons they would come in there. Would you say that they could be hiding that? There's not enough profit to hide $40,000 in a landscape job. So what really, in my opinion, what it came down to is that individual captured their total environment of what they wanted to more than you did. That's the bottom line. And we can't keep the problem so often in sales is we accept an objection as it's not me. Well, it's always you. 100% of the time. If we lose a deal, it's because we lost the deal. It has nothing to do with the competition. It means that we didn't create a good enough relationship. It means that we didn't understand what the customer's needs were more. We didn't listen to them about what their budget was, what they want to accomplish, because people will find ways to do business when they want to do business with you. How many times have people, and I know this has happened hundreds and hundreds of times with people on this call, you're done, you feel like it was great, they shift their head the entire time, all the way through, you're done with the presentation, and you might say something like the effect, well, what do you think? And the customer will say, where do we go from here? You didn't even ask the question of whether or not they wanted the pool. They say, where do you go from here? Because what you did is you closed every door along the way. You met all of their expectations along the way, and they're ready to go. But they almost had to close themselves. And as long as, not to drift off here, but I'll kind of give you an analogy. People used to, my sales guys would always come in and say, well, we lost the pool because of price. And I would say, you did. And he says, yeah, I'm $5,000 more. Then instead of saying, okay, first of all, why didn't we create $5,000 more value? But why don't you frame it a little bit differently? Now, we've also people in this room that have gone through a presentation and the customers have said to you, if you said, have you heard about any of this stuff before? Did anybody talk to you about gunite or plumbing or 45s or steel or anything that we do or about the company? And inevitably, the customer will say, no, nobody's ever talked to me about that. Now, so why do you think that is? And I said, because they meet the minimum codes and standards. Before we do anything, let me tell you that we're not interested in the minimum codes and standards. We're interested in building a pool that you can enjoy for the rest of your life. And because, to Brian's point, because of our scale and size and our buying power, because we have 11% of the marketplaces, we can do things that other people can't do. So I'm going to take a few minutes and explain to you not what everybody else is doing, but what I'm doing. So we'll go through the plumbing, and we'll talk about, our plumbing moves twice, water twice as fast, our pools are twice as strong, and we shoot gunite differently, or whatever, our entire value proposition. And then usually the question I ask is, isn't life when you really get something that is twice as good, that lasts twice as long, that it costs twice as much? And what do you think the customer is going to say? Yeah, that's usually what happens in life. Matter of fact, when you buy a car, it can have 10% more performance, and you're going to pay twice as much for it. I'm not going to scare you now and tell you that my product, my pool, is twice as much, even though it's built to last twice as long. But because of our size and our scope and our scale, in most cases, we're not even 10% more than the competition. And I'm saying in most cases, that's the case. Well, if we're at $100,000, we just built $10,000 into it, then I would ask the most question, and if we can give you all this quality and we are only 10% more than the competition, wouldn't you consider that a great value? Well, you got to wait for that response. They would say, of course that is. Now we get through the whole presentation, and you come in at $106,500, and the competition is at $105,000. Well, you're not 10% more. You're only $6,500 more. And the customer says, man, I can really see the value there, but you're still $6,500 more than the competition. The first thing we cannot do, and this is where the real answer comes in, is get defensive and say, yeah, but we're better and we're bigger. The first thing you can say, we talked about a lot of things today. We talked about the quality of our pool. If you would like me to build your competitor's pool, I could probably beat their price. Are you interested in me building his pool and me taking all the quality things that we talked about out? And I would literally hand them the pencil and say, why don't you go ahead and you take out what you think you don't want to pay for. You want to pay for that extra spill that we talked about, making the pool twice as strong? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. You want to take out the 2.5-inch pumping and the 45s and the extended warranty on the equipment or whatever? No, I don't want to do that. So tell me what economics. I can't put extra volume things in there without charging you for it, but I'll tell you what I will do, because I want you to refer our company. I make about 20%. I'll be honest with you. I make about 20% gross in this. And you told me I'm $6,000 more. So if it costs me $6,000 more to build my pool than it does the competition, why don't I just take out all my profit and that extra stuff? So that's 6 times 2. That's $1,200. Because I want you to own that. I can either give it to you at his price, or I can give it to you all that extra quality I put in there at my cost and take out the 20%. So I'll take the $1,200 out, or would you like me to go ahead and build his pool? What do you think they're going to say? 100% of the time that I've used that, they said, no, I want the quality, but if you're going to take out the profit, yeah, because I want you to refer our company, and I don't want you to sacrifice on the quality. You told me you didn't want the pool built the way that the competition built the pool. So if you get a situation, you're building apples and oranges. We haven't established the fact that you're not only for any amount of money, you're protecting your investment long term. This is the whole reason I came up with Hydura. We're going to have that specially engineered for us. We're going to be the only ones in the entire industry offering a 5-year warranty on it. And then we're going to have a story of why we can offer a 5-year warranty on our equipment. Because we have it specially engineered, and we don't want you to worry about that for the next 5 years. Now, whether we absorb the $299 or whatever it is, or we sell that to them, or we put it in the initial price, we're going to have something in our own private label brand that we can create a value proposition for. But we get no value out of anything unless we create the value proposition. We do the entire presentation. We educate them what the competition doesn't. They got one trick pony, and that trick pony is price. People are, once you get up to $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, they don't want a few $1,000s getting away potentially not getting what they want. But you have to make sure that they get their head shaken and give them the opportunity. If you want what, and by the way, don't be afraid to say if you want it built like they did, and they don't know how they built the pool because they don't talk about how they built the pool. They only know about the way you built the pool. So there really isn't any reason. There's a sale to be made in every single person that buys a pool. And it's just really what's the qualifying questions that you ask up front, and how do you really address things by going through, getting sure that when you're doing your presentation, they're shaking their head and they're buying into what you want. So somebody said to me in a sales meeting a couple of weeks ago, well, I lost the pool because they said they're going to wait till next year. I said, really? They said, yeah, they decided to wait till next year. I said, they say that? You think they're really going to wait till next year? Or you think they're going to just build with somebody else? No, they said they're going to wait till next year. And why during our pre-call and when we congratulate the customers for, finally deciding to build a pool for their family, one of the questions you ask, if you find the right builder and you find the right value proposition, and they give you the right design, and more importantly, you have confidence in that builder and their company, when are you prepared how soon are you going to build the pool? Well, if I find all that, I'm going to do it this summer. Well, you think you might have just closed that door? They're going to come back and say, I'm going to wait till next year. That's an objection to get you out of the house because they don't want to say, they're only going to say a couple things. I'm going to wait till next year. I'm still getting extra. Or usually what they say is I'm still getting more bids. What they're saying when they're saying I don't have any more bids is that you haven't given me enough information right now for me to make a decision. There's still too much doubt in the buying process for me to make a decision to do business with you. So I'm going to continue to look at somebody else. And if nobody creates any delineation, any separation, I'm probably just going to go with the person that has the lowest price. Well, that's what we fall into more than why the customer asked us in the home. They asked us to come in the house to convince them that you're the right person to do business with. And I'll leave you with this one thing. And you guys need to, this is how you make your living. This is how you feed your family. Every home, and I had a pretty good closing rate, and I won't share it with you because it come across sounds like I'm bragging, but I did okay. But I would ask customers after getting to know them, shaking their hand, talking about their dogs, talking about their kids, talking about their restaurants, talking about how long they had a pool, whatever it took to develop a relationship. I would ask them, this is the way I make my living, and I appreciate your honest feedback. And they'd say, certainly. Would it be fair to say that the company that comes in and convinces you they're the right company, that captures kind of your dream and your vision and has the right value proposition, and you have confidence in that person that convinces you that they're the right people to do business with, is that probably the person you're going to do business with? You know what the answer to that is 100% of the time? Yes, obviously. Then would it be okay when I'm done telling you everything about my company, going over the value proposition, showing you the design, you helping me make the design changes because I want to be perfect with you? Would it be okay if I asked you if I did my job and convinced you that this is the right company and I'm the right person to do business with? Would that be okay with you? What do you think that question answer is 100% of the time? Of course. Then you better ask it. Because I ask it every single time. Did I do my job now that we're done? Did I convince you that my company is the right company and this is the right pool and this is the right value proposition? And most importantly, do you have confidence in me to do a great job for you? There's only two answers, yes or no. If they say, I don't know, then you can say, why? I'm sorry, I disappointed you. What things are you unsure about that maybe I can explain to you so that you do gain that confidence to do business with me? See, that's kind of your job. If you're not willing to have that conversation with people, then you shouldn't really be selling, because they asked you to come in their house and do exactly that. Matter of fact, you asked them, isn't that what they're looking for? If they knew who they were going to do business with, it would be, they had already called up that person and said, come out and write me up because I'm going to be the person that you're going to do business with. But they don't. It's those factors that people make decisions on. And then the last thing, I got one more thing because I think it's important. I asked somebody yesterday, And would you let, if your mother came in and said, you know, I have my best friend, her whole life she wanted a swimming pool. And I'm so proud of her because I told her my son or my daughter built pools and they do a great job. And I said that, you know, call them up. I promise you he's going to do a great job for you. Now you go out there and you talk to your mother's best friend. She's so excited about a swimming pool. And you go through the whole presentation. And at the end, she said, you know what? I love it, but I'm getting more bids. Would you say, okay, fine, go ahead and do that? Or would you say, you know what? That's fine. I get it. But, you know, my mom really cares about you. And she knows how much I care about what I do. And so I just really can't let you make the wrong decision and potentially do business with somebody else. So what do we need to do to make sure you're comfortable enough? You already know who I am. You already know my mom wouldn't send me here. That's why I take care of you. Would you let somebody that's close, that you cared about that much, somebody that you didn't want to disappoint, do business with anybody else? Or would you just stay there until you got a contract? I want you to answer that question for me. First objection, I'm still getting business. You say, well, I just can't let you do that. My mom said to take care of you. And so I'm going to make sure I take care of you. What do we need to do to so that you're confident enough to do business with? Would you not have that conversation with somebody you really cared about and somebody you really know? What's the difference then with every single customer you walk in anybody's house? The only difference is you have an emotional attachment. You care about their satisfaction. You're committed to doing a great job.
I'm committed to customer satisfaction.
So you're saying, I'm just not going to let that happen because I would disappoint you and I disappoint my mother if I didn't follow through because she knows who I am. Well, that's the way you should feel about every customer. And if you feel that way about every customer and every customer feels that you feel that way about them, then you're going to find out you've accomplished exactly what they want. And what they want is they want to have confidence that you're committed to taking care of them and you have the expertise to take care of them. And you will make sure the financial proposition makes sense. And if you don't know what the financial proposition is, you don't know what they have to spend to begin with. And that's imperative that you at least know the range. Because people sometimes think that their pools are $60,000 and they come out and they describe a $100,000 pool. And we come out thinking, man, we're really listening. We come out with a $100,000 pool. And they're too embarrassed to say, man, I love it, but I don't have $100,000. So the next guy comes in at $80,000. He gets it because he's $20,000 less, and he's not $20,000 less. He's built a $20,000 lower cost pool. Because they're never, ever, ever apples to apples. If you would have said to that customer, okay, let's bring out the plan. And I will bring a landscaper in here because I don't do landscaper. And we will go through item by item. We will go through every plant. We will go through every stick of plumbing just because I don't, whether you do business with me or not, I don't want you to become a victim. And I want to make sure you're getting what you think you're getting. Because I can assure you, there was no $40,000 to be had in landscaping or anywhere else.
So I got a quick question. So
yes, sir.
It seems when we make that first contact with the customer, their dreams are huge, right? They want that big swimming pool. That's what they're envisioning. They're not envisioning a plunge pool, even though that's probably what their budget is going to allow. So when we ask them, what are your aspirations? What are your dreams? What are your visions? And they're always like, we want the biggest thing you got. We want the deepest thing you got. You know, they got all these grand ideas. And this is before, obviously, we know what their budget is. So then we start tailoring that proposal or that design, and then we go to that appointment. We're already kind of behind the eight ball because should we lessen their expectations a little bit or come with a second backdoor? Hey, here's really, when you find out, talking to them for 2 or 3 hours, they can't afford a $110,000 pool.
Okay, well then sell them. What can they afford?
Well, that's what I'm saying is when we go there.
But you need, have you walked into a car lot? And the first thing the car dealer says is, what kind of payment do you want?
Mm-hmm.
First thing he says is, he didn't even ask you what kind of money you wanted to spend on a car. He just said, what kind of a payment do you want to stay in? And the first thing, 90% of the customers will say, well, I'm really thinking I can't really go over $400 a month. You think he's going to go show him a $100,000 car? It's going to cost them $1,500 a month? Well, he's not. He's going to say, okay, let's go over here. These cars I can get you in the $400 a month range, and then let them walk themselves up. Brian used to do a great job at this. It was different than I did it, but I thought it was really, really good. He would go in there and say, I want you to go through my picture book here, or in this particular case, the website or your digital, and point to pools you like, and I'll kind of give you a price range of what that pool costs. And they would point to a pool, and he'd say, okay, that pool that size with the minimum amount of deck probably starts at $50,000, whatever the number is. And if you want the spa on that, it's going to cost you about $15,000 more. If you want the waterfall on there, it's going to cost you about $3,000 more. So if you kind of wanted that pool, I don't know what features you want on it, but if you want it just as it sits, you're probably looking at an $85,000 range. Or probably, I don't know if have you already secured financing? I wouldn't say you paying cash. Have you already secured financing, or are you looking for us to help you with that? Well, I'm looking for you to help us with that. Well, that's probably, if you didn't put any money down, you're probably looking at about $1,000 a month. Does that fit in your budget? Well,
now you're doing this first call. You're doing this first call.
100%. Why would you not? Why would you go back and spend 6 hours? You got to drive home. You got to miss dinner with your family. You got to go back and design the pool. You got to come back. You got to go through a whole presentation, and then they're going to say, we're still getting bids. And they're really saying, man, you came back with a $100,000 pool, and somebody's outmaneuvered you because they gave me a $70,000 pool, and I can afford a $70,000 pool. I sure would like to have enough money to pay that $100,000. Mm-hmm. Why do you think home builders, they have the big sign out and says homes $399,000? Because the customer, when they walk in, they know they can afford $399,000. They just can't, and then you get nothing with it. Yeah. They can't afford the granite countertops. They can't afford the tile upgrades. They can't afford the nice cabinets, the nice pools, the nice carpet. But all of a sudden, they walk themselves up. And they walk themselves up through what they can afford. And they'll stop at where they can afford. That means some people go and spend another $300,000 on upgrades on the $300,000. Some people spend nothing. And that's just that the home builders are master. Don't talk yourself out of the sale, because if I said, if I walked in there and said, what all the things in here you want, they don't, you know what they don't do? They don't show them the design center until after they bought the house. You don't even make an appointment to go through it, because they know that when they get the house they wanted, it'd be $600,000 and they couldn't afford it. So they sell them the $400,000 house and they let them walk themselves up. And that's so important to find out what they can budget. And then things you can say is, you know what? Right now it's probably not in your budget for a waterfall, but what I will do for you, because if you want to save up for a couple of years and put a waterfall pump in, why don't I go ahead and just plumb that in for you and put a valve there? And that way, when you want to add it a few years ago, it's already plumbed for that. Can we do that? Or solar or anything else? See, the last thing people want to do is get embarrassed by they tell you what you want, and you come back without having a clue of what they can spend, and then they get sticker shock. They are like, holy cow, $120,000, and now they're just looking for somebody to be below that and even come close, even though I've had customers say, well, the poles are exactly the same. I had a 16 by 32 freeform, 80 perimeter, and our geometric, and somebody else came in with 16 by 32 freeform and 80 perimeter, and my 16 by 32 geometric was 96 perimeter. They said the poles are exactly the same. No, they're not. My pole's 16 feet perimeter bigger, but and one was geometric, one was freeform. So don't assume the customers are smart as you think they are. If they did, they wouldn't ask you, what tile should I put on? What do you think looks nice? What deck is the nicest? They're looking for your guidance, so you have to not let the tail wag the dog. You have to make sure that you go in and you find out what they want, and you lead up to a situation of what they can afford. Say, I would be doing you a disservice showing you things that weren't in your budget. I'd never say afford. I'd be doing you a disservice. So why don't we go through here, and I'll kind of give you an idea of what certain things and features cost and certain sizes they cost. And you tell me what you're comfortable with, and I'll come back and make sure that when I come back, that I even beat your budget. Would that be fair? Never do anything without asking the question. Would that be okay with you? Because the reason people don't want to give you the budget, they don't want you to say, oh, geez, if I say I got $100,000, I'm going to get a bid that comes at $100,000 when somebody else may come in at $90,000. Just say, my job is to listen to you and give you the very best value, but I also don't want to disappoint you by designing something that probably doesn't fit into your budget. So why don't you start telling me some of these things you're comfortable with? I'll give you the price of a spa. I'll give you the cost of extra concrete. We usually start with 400 square feet of concrete, and then you can upgrade it for $10 a foot or what, however you want to do it. But start out when you buy the car at the car lot. They advertise the $49,000 F-150, and then they show you vinyl seats and no radio. And then you say, well, I want a radio. I want leather seats. I want whatever I want. And you drive off the lot with $70,000. What brought you to the car lot? Oh, trucks are on sale. They have for $50,000. But ultimately get what they want. And then they don't even quit selling there because they get you in the closing booth. They try to sell you the extended warranties and the wax job and all the crazy stuff that they make 90% profit on. And a lot of people buy that at the end of the day too. But they had to. This is why we're so successful with like Toledo. It's not because somebody wants a thin 14 by 28 pool. They said, man, I can go swimming for $50,000 or $399 a month. We can afford that. But 9 out of 10 times, once they decide they want a pool, they're going to get what they want. But we have to. What lured them in was the fact that they can afford that, especially right now, because the economy is kind of dicey. Interest rates are high. People are unsure about their job, but the desire to own the product is great now as it ever was. But the only thing, you have to validate their decision for calling you. The only way you can validate your decision is talking about value. Never talk about price. Say, we want to make sure that you're a value shopper. And most people don't buy price. I always use the analogy of you bought a hammer just as something to hit a nail, and that's all that was important to you. Would you go buy that hammer at the dollar store?
Oh, you got over
here. Or would you go to Costco or Home Depot and you say, hey man, that's a great hammer, and it's normally $17 and sell for $12.99. I'm going to pick it up.
Video off
The customer saying, well, of course I would buy the one that's on sale for $12.99. So you pay 13 times what the other one costs and does exactly the same thing. Why? Because there's 13 times more value to me. You see, that's why price is never an equation. And the other one, how many of you guys have gone to Best Buy, looked at the TVs, and you see 15, 16-inch TVs in a row?
I need to get some.
And they'll start at $3.99, they'll go all the way up to $49.99. All 60-inch TVs. And you're straining your eyes to see, man, which one's the best? And you know how many people buy the $3.99? Less than 10%. How many people buy the $49.99? Less than 10%. You know how many people buy the $7.99? 80%. Same 60-inch TV, but the salesperson and themselves have convinced themselves, even though they're paying 8 times or 4, and in this particular case, twice the cost, with negligible visual differences,
Stand outside the booth.
they're going to buy it. You know why? You like NFL? You like watching football on Sunday? Yeah. Oh, you don't want the $3.99. We get that. We do that one so you can send it with your kids to go to college. It doesn't really have the highlights, when you're watching the plays. It doesn't have the sharpness that you expect in there. And you convince you, and you look at them and say, well, you're probably right. And then because they want to sell you the $7.99 TV, they'll take you over to the $49 and say, here's the beautiful thing about this one. It's almost identical. Not quite as good, but for $3,000 less, you can. And so all of a sudden you justify paying twice as much for something that probably is only maybe 5% better than one is $3.99. But then you'll pay 100% more. So we're conditioned to buy that way in everything we do. But we don't sell that way in swimming pools. Most pool builders, pool salesmen, they walk in, they get to know them, they'll ask a few questions, they'll put the pictures on the table, they'll go out and measure the yard, they'll get some notes and say, I'll be back with the design. At that point in time, you're no different than anybody else. And if you come back with the design without putting any value then the value should really be created in the first call. And I would, and I've said this 100 times, if you guys want to have an 80% closing ratio, tell your customers when we come back, if it's okay with you, I'm going to just spend 45 more minutes and I'm going to take you to show you 2 pools because this is a big investment and I want you to see the quality of the product we built. Can I go ahead and schedule you that in? You ask that on the first call. And they'll say, yeah, so I'm going to just ask for an extra hour and I'll do it close to the house, but I really want you to see that before you make that big investment. I don't know how many of you show pools, but you don't lose pools that you show. It's not even because they're looking at the pools, because the customer there sells the pool for it. They're the ones coming out there and saying, man, don't even look anymore. I did all the hard work. These guys are the best. So and successful people do the things other people don't want to do. And if you say, I don't have time to do that, well, you have time not to sell it. You have time to go out there and invest 3 or 4 or 6 hours in there, close 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 10 or whatever the heck you're closing when you should be closing 8 out of 10. So I would be more efficient than worry about how much you have to do. I'd put more time in every sales call than trying to get through 4 or 5 sales calls a day. It's one of the reasons why the most successful people in this company only take 15 leads a month. Because they said, man, if I'm going to do my job right, I want to make sure I sell 5 of those. And to sell 5 of those, I need to put about 10 hours, 10 hours at least into every project. And that's the ones you sell. You outwork the competition. Because otherwise you're just bidding, guys. You're not really selling. You're coming up with a design, you're consulting, and you're bidding. All 3 of those things you don't get paid for. The only thing we get paid for is when we sell. So you're never going to see these people again if you don't sell them a pool. So don't leave the house thinking you did all your job and they had 5 people in the house and it's closed, but I got the red ribbon. You get the same for a red ribbon as no ribbon. 0. The only one that wins is the blue ribbon. There's only one winner in this equation. So if you're not the winner, you need to figure out what you need to do to make sure you're in the house and ask the questions you're in the house to make sure that you've gained their confidence. That's selling. And I have no problem with that personally, because I frankly believe that we do the best job and I don't want them to do business with second best. You guys, I don't know how many owners we have on this, but I know you guys work for owners that care about quality. And you know how schlocky some of these builders out there. Why would you when they come and they ask you to convince them, why would you let them do business with anybody else? Why would you say, did I do my job and convince you? I hope they say no. Because then I say, why? Is it the design? Is the design not perfect? Well, actually, it is the design. I saw somebody else's design I like better. Okay. What if I built his design? Would you be okay with that? Because he can't build if you don't like pool and you want that design, but you don't want him to build it, one thing that comes with this company, it comes with no one else, and that's me, and I care more. So I don't have any little artistic integrity. I just want what you want. So tell me exactly what he has that you like so I can make sure you get what you want. That's what's important. And you know how many people said to me, because I wasn't a very good designer, you'll do that? I said, of course I'll do that. I just want to build your pool. It's what I do. Tell me exactly what you want. Show me exactly what you want. If you want me to give you a fair estimate, bring that bid out. I'll go over line item by line item with you, and I'll tell you whether or not you're getting value, and I'll explain to you why you are or why you're not. You deserve that. You deserve to have all the facts before you make a decision. If anybody ever brought out a plan, you're going to get 100% of those jobs. Because you're going to tear the plan up. It's going to be very, very clear to you, this is why the price is different. You think you're getting the same pool, but you're not. Their perimeter's different. They don't have a bond beam on the back. They have 400 square feet of deck. I have 600 square feet deck. They don't understand all that stuff. If they did, they'd be building their own pool. Sometimes it's important for us to illustrate that. And let me prove to you that my value proposition is as good as anybody else's. Bring theirs out and I'll prove it to you. If I asked you guys in your home, would you guys be offended by that? Because I'm trying to make sure you're getting what you think you're getting. And then if I'm not, I'm going to respect any decision you want to make. If we can't make it happen for you, I certainly respect that. And maybe if they don't, do a good job, if you decide to go with them, then you still refer me because I want to create a good relationship. Once they really believe that you're out for their best interest, and you better be out for their best interest, then again, getting back to that, would you let a buddy not bring out his plan if you got? Why don't you show me what you have, and maybe we can even improve on that. Is there anything on his plan that you'd like me to go ahead and incorporate in my plan or his plan? Those are that is a relationship selling, and that's the most important thing that we can do in this business. You quit bidding and start selling, and you can only sell unless you develop and maintain a legitimate and genuine, integrity-based relationship with that customer. Because you're the doctor. I mean, they're calling in you to fix their ills. And you would tell your doctor everything because you want to fix it. In their world, you're the pool doctor. One more question, and I got to run. All sales experts, we're going to get 90% closing now, Brian, because we have no questions. Anything at all, guys? Okay. Well, I appreciate you.
I got one.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So, an objection that I run into here, actually pretty recent, was on the second appointment, and this has happened multiple times in the past. People will say, I'm not comfortable signing today because I need to inquire about financing first. What would you do in that regard, roughly?
Why don't you let me? I would first of all get their financing out of the way I'd ask them during the pre-call, have you, we're the largest builder in the world. We have some preferential financing. We even have financing that doesn't even affect your credit. Would you like to see maybe a couple different programs that we can get you without even hitting your credit? So you can kind of see what kind of range you're in. If you want, I can probably have that done in 5 minutes for you.
And when did you say you normally would go about doing that on the second?
As soon as first, I would say, yeah. What I would say as soon if you're in the house and you found out what the budget is, you say, have you already secured financing, or would you like to look at some of our preferred financing programs? 100% of the time, I'd say, I wouldn't mind looking at that. Get them a credit approval while you're sitting there. We can get you a credit approval in 5 minutes. And it doesn't hit, it's called a soft pull, doesn't even hit their credit. So they can at least know what they qualify for. So here's why I would do that. Why would you spend your time going through the whole process, spending your gas money, spending time away from your family, spending 8 hours designing without knowing whether or not they can even afford to get a pool? I mean, that's silly. So consequently, I would absolutely say, and do it in what not, hey, let me see if I can get you finance. Would you like, we have, as the nation's largest pool builder, we have some preferred financing. Would you like me to run a soft pull and see what financing programs might be available for you? I can do it in about 10 minutes. And it doesn't even take any information. All it takes is their name and phone number. You can do that even before you go out there. Yeah. You can know whether they're approved before you even show up at a house with just their name and address. And it doesn't, we don't need approval. It's the same kind of system as like when you get these pre-approved things in the mail, but again, it's, you got to ask the questions. Why would you leave? That's at one of those doors, like I said earlier, I'm not getting the pool this year. We decided to wait the next. No, they're not. They just decided they're not going to build with you, and that's the way to get you out of the house. So they're just decided that that's the easiest way to get you out. We're going to look into financing. Why would you ask that the very first time you come? Have you secured your financing, or would you like me to help you with our preferred financing? They're going to say one of two things. Yes, I've secured it. Or no, if they said that you secured it, you think when you come back that you're going to have to overcome that objection? No. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you, because when I talked to you when I first came in here, you said you already secured that. Is there something else that we need to look at? So those are just objections. Those aren't legitimate objections. Those are just objections. An objection, guys, is not a no. Remember this. An objection is not a no. It's objection saying, I just don't have enough information right now to make a buying decision. So your job when you get an objection is to give them more information so they can make a buying decision. That's all an objection is. People think objections, they're just saying no. No, they're not. They just are still searching to get their answers answered so they can make a buying decision. That's your job. That's your job as a salesperson. Okay, guys, thanks so much.
So guys, here's your project for next week. So first of all, just to answer your financing question, if you guys are not aware of the Thrive program we run, these guys get near instantaneous approvals, and we've got about an 80% approval rate. So that would be one. We've sent out a couple of emails to that effect. Two, I want you guys to make mental note of your customer interactions this week, because I'm going to ask you about some of the objection cycles that you got from your customers. Where did we win? Where did we run into the wall? Where did we lose? Because that's how we're going to improve. So think about this. Maybe write down a couple of questions, because I will be calling on a couple of you randomly next week to ask some questions. Guys, have a great weekend. Good luck. And we will catch you next week. Take care, everybody.